Good morning and welcome everyone to Pro Landscaper TV. Welcome to the viewers on Facebook Live, Instagram Live, via the Zoom, and also for the people watching it on catch up on the Pro Landscaper website and the Pro Landscaper YouTube channel. I'm delighted to say that last week's program with Lewis Norman across all of our channels had just under 1,500 views. So it's a fantastic audience. And I know Lewis has had more people sign up to his petition. We're here every Tuesday at 10 o'clock, around half an hour. Keep your eye on the Pro Landscaper website and it will give you who's speaking, what the channel, what the program's about and how to register. I'm delighted today to be joined by one of the UK's leading garden designers, Helen Elk Smith. Helen, who was made the Fellow of the Society of Garden Designers last year for her outstanding contribution to the industry. She is also included in the House and Gardens Top 50 Garden Designers and Country Life's Top 25 Garden Designers. This is a compliment in a way, but I hope it comes across like that. Helen is never afraid to speak her mind, and people that have heard her before will know that she has views that are worth listening to. Welcome, Helen, and thank you very much for agreeing to join us today.
Morning, Jim, and thanks for inviting me and saying all those nice words. And yes, have opinions. I'm not sure which. Close.
I was worried that we only had half an hour, so I had to choose the ones that I felt were most relevant. But there were a lot more as well. But that's very good. So lots to talk about, Helen. The first thing now, let's talk about your new projects. The program, Your Garden Made Perfect, which I think starts this week on the 4th. I guess for people that don't know, can you just explain the concept of the program and why it's different maybe than the other garden makeover shows? And also, if you take into account, a lot of people think those other garden shows has a real negative effect on our industry, why you think this one might be slightly different?
Well, the premise of the show, if people don't know it, and I have to say I didn't know the show, so I had to watch some videos. I had to watch some stuff on iPlayer. There's a house program where you have two there's the two architects all competing against each other, that whole chestnut. But essentially, you take a brief from real clients with real money that they've saved up, that they are going to spend. You do designs for them. They choose one and it gets built. But the fun bit is that the house, and in our case, gardens, are modelled in virtual reality. So you put the headsets on first, and you get transported into that space. And really importantly for the clients is that they also get transported into that space, and then they kind of choose. Where it's different, so I do agree, I think there are problems with some of the garden makeover shows where maybe design is not at the forefront of some of those decisions that are made for the changes for those gardens. And I think there's a particular issue to do with builds and budgets, or perception of builds and budgets. And I think every designer will have received a phone call where, and contractors too, I'm sure, where somebody will phone up and say, I've got a garden. I want a couple of patios, I want a pergola, I want, and there's a really long list of things. And then you'll say to them, have a little chat with them, and then you say to them, so what's your budget? And they'll say £5,000. And then you'll say, well, you can't have that for £5,000. And while we appreciate that's a lot of money, it's not going to buy you that long list of things. So, where are the compromise points? And those clients will say, well, I know, because I've seen it on the telly, that you can get those things for that amount of money. And it puts you in a very difficult position. And I think that our industry deserves better, actually. I think there are lots of very good designers who do good work. I think there's lots of very good contractors who do good work, and they do schemes on budget, good quality builds that are meant to last. And I think that if we can create a program which demonstrates that is true to that, and also demonstrates the value, that's actually a good spend, that same list of things, the minimum budget is going to be around £20,000, and that's just a reflection of the cost of those materials labour charges. Somebody's making a profit. It's not a hobby. People are doing this as businesses. They're making a living. They're making a reasonable living. They've got to pay sick pay, holiday pay. They've got to pay attention to health and safety. All of those things are really important, and that comes at a certain price. Off my hobby horse.
So just a couple of things on that. And just going to virtual reality then. So is that the garden as it looks at the end of the build, or is that a garden as it will do in 2 or 3 years when things get time to flourish and grow?
So they do 2 modelling. So first of all, they model the existing garden, and that's important for the clients to kind of orientate themselves and to sort of understand what, and get to feel the BR. And then they do the garden, what it'll look like when it's mature. Definitely it's built, but then of course the gardens get built, and so then you do see that garden, you do see a new garden, which is actually what you don't usually see on the telly. You don't normally see new gardens. You normally see gardens that are full and flush and mature, or you see the show gardens.
So is there staging at the end then to make the gardens look different as it was if you were doing it without the TV cameras there?
Yes and no. So no, mostly the gardens are planted out, so they're horticulturally correct. So you basically see lots of bare soil, and there is some. So what there was a budget from the TV company to do a bit of dressing, and some of that was spent on for the different projects. So it might be kind of like candles or blankets or cushions, or some of that was sort of little bits and bobs, things that people would put into a garden. So there was a bit of staging to do with that, which I think is perfectly okay. I don't have a problem with that at all. And then there were also some fairly small amounts of money to plant, well, it depends who's paying for that, of course, but to add some extra plants that were flowering at that time, because the gardens were all filmed in October. But they're not, we're not talking smoke and mirrors here. These are real gardens.
Yeah. So first of all, I was extremely surprised that you put yourself forward for it because of I guess your reputation and where you are and the kind of gardens you design and build. Would you have done that in a normal environment, in a normal post-COVID or pre-COVID?
Well, I think I'm going to design like anybody else. I'm as curious, and I'm absolutely no different now than I was 5-10 years ago. So yeah, definitely the call went out in lockdown. It all went out in COVID. It was a weird last year. It's a weird year this year. It was interesting. Normally I suppose lockdown, I'm like everybody else. You have lots of things that you love doing have all been taken away from us. Going out in the evening, going to see music theatre, going out for dinner with friends, that's all been taken away from us, and we can't do that because we need to try and keep everybody safe. But I miss all of those things. So my world, like everybody else's last year, got very limited. It got very restricted, and it changed. Along comes this kind of like, oh, there's this TV thing, and I was curious, most definitely curious. Anyway, so then I spoke to the producer, who is very decent and has a lot of integrity. And I also think as well, when we had a conversation, I was kind of curious. I had a conversation, and it became really clear through that conversation that the purpose of the programme was to demonstrate the benefit of design at all levels of build costs. That when you're making a change, whether it's a house or a garden, you are going to build something. There are design decisions that will be made, and that there is value in making them explicitly and considered, and using a designer to think through those different issues. And I really like that. And that was really clear right from the outset that mattered to the producers and it mattered to the programme. The other thing, we had some really good conversations. There were 2 other things that were really important for me, was this issue of, are they real budgets? Are they real people? And are we going to do what we do normally, which is to build a garden that's going to last, where if you say it's got a budget of £20,000, that is what was spent. And it was really clear that that was absolutely central to the premise of the programme. For the BBC, for the producers, for everybody involved in creating this programme, that was a really sort of core thing. So that was really important for me. And the other thing that was really important for me is that when the gardens were planted out, we weren't doing show garden style-y, pack them, it all looks great, we all walk off, and then there's too many plants in the garden and then they die and we leave the client with problems. But actually we do it properly, and that, again, for them, that was also really important. So it was kind of a good combination of me kind of going, well, I haven't got anywhere to put a dress on and a nice pair of heels and go and meet my friends. That's interesting, and that led me to the first conversation. And then I liked where they were coming from, and I still like them. I still think that they have a lot of integrity about what they're trying to achieve, and I think that's important.
So the interior one, or the build one, the budgets for that programme were quite realistic and quite real, and you could see that it was proper money and it was proper houses. And are the budgets here the same? You know, is it a proper budget that would do a proper job? And is it all inclusive? Is it including your time? Is it including the contractor's time? Or do they just say this was a round fee? Or how does it come across?
So our fees are not paid for by the clients. We are paid, but our design fees are not paid by the clients. So in that sense, it's not really a client. If you were to look at a client's budget and they were doing it for real life, they'd also have to pay us. Yeah. But as I say, we are paid. The budget. So what happened is that when they asked people, and they said, "Okay, what are your budgets?" And then the people involved in the program, who are pretty savvy, they had conversations with the clients about budgets. And then when we met the clients, we all we had an opportunity to speak to clients about anything that we wanted to, take a brief. We had time to do all of those things exactly as you would do with a normal client. And then we also had time to have conversations with them about those budgets and about what the connection was between their wish list and what that would actually buy them. And then we discussed with them, if there was a disconnection, what did they want to do? So it was a completely normal process that I would go through with any clients. And that's people on a budget of, 20,000 up to £1 million. There's always that. Well, occasionally you have somebody who just says, no, I'll build it. But, mostly, for most people, whatever your budget point, it's, what are your compromise points? Because we all want more than we can afford. That's normal. And we had those conversations with all of the contributors.
And so sorry.
Yeah, no, go on.
So there's 4 designers working for the programme. Each episode, 2 of you go head to head. Again, referring back to the interior one, they had quite a way out design type approach, completely changing everything. Or one was a bit more of a safe bet. Is that again how this comes across? You sort of have a regular design in the nicest possible way, not that anything's that regular, and then one that's completely way out, or is it? It's not along those lines.
Well, you kind of have to wait and see, and we'll have that conversation at the end when you've seen all the episodes. But for me, these are clients, potential clients, where you do a design, and I personally was not interested in showboating, of kind of going, look, this is all about me. I mean, I generally don't find that interesting when I work with clients anyway, because actually fundamentally it's the client's garden, it's the client's space. They're all, all clients are different and they're individuals, and actually the joy for me is actually getting to know them and what do they want. I'm just as happy, designing a really formal, tight, linear, a traditional scheme as I am designing something that's ultra contemporary. For me, the joy of working with clients and designing gardens is that I don't have to be limited by what I like. I can do, you can design all sorts of different things. And I personally would approach this in the same way that, I approach anything. It's on iPlayer, Kathy, if you haven't got a TV. For me, it's, that mattered. They're real clients.
So you like adopted the client then, and you were not being swayed at all by the production team. It was your ideas based on a conversation that you would have with a client in a normal run of the mill.
The production team didn't. That you meet the clients, you go through all the same thing. Production company are really fantastic. So they're building a new program where they're really great at making telly, and obviously it's the same people, it's the same team that make the architecture program. So they're a pretty savvy bunch. They make great telly. They don't know about the process of garden design. So, it's the first program. So we had a lot of input into, there are lots of questions, and we were able to hopefully, help them along that route and explain to them and, kind of lead them through that process. And that was important, it wasn't just that, it certainly wasn't them saying to us, you've got to do this, or, can you include a flying helicopter in the middle of your design? It's just like, okay, there's your clients, you take a brief, you respond to site, and then it's entirely up to you as a designer what you design and what you present to them. And absolutely, there was no interference at all from the production company at any stage, other than to say, you've got to do it within these timescales, which were tight. But that's fine.
Well, tight in terms of design, or in terms of design and the build part?
But all of it. It was very tight. You meet the client and you have to turn the designs around very quickly, and then you've got to get them to the VR company, because the VR is quite a time consuming, it takes quite a lot of time. It's a highly skilled job. So we had to provide them. I mean, I'm quite tech savvy, so we had 3D Vectorworks models, and we exported them. I can't even remember what format, but they were all exported and given to the VR company. So it is very, it's based on exactly. It's not, there's no changing of anything there. So that was all sort of. And the VR it's a bit bling. I mean, if you've seen any of the trailers for the program, you will see the VR is, it's photorealistic, bright. But I think that probably on television, that probably works. They have, obviously they've been doing the house program, and the plant library, I would say, I'm a plant obsessive, I love plants, and planting is kind of completely integral to the success of the design. So I'm there kind of going, well, I'd really like a grey plant that's, mounded like this, and, it's this size, this height, and then I would like, and I wanted to have this texture leaves, and so that you can truly represent what it's actually going to look like. Well, it's VR, that's not going to happen, it's not possible. So when the VR is being done, it's suggestive of, although they are sort of quite blitzy, photorealistic stuff.
Have you used VR before?
No, but it's great fun.
Will you use it again or not?
If you could do it, if it was economically viable and you could find the skills, it is a fantastic way to allow a client to see what's in your head. Designers, we're all the same. You see a space, you design a space, it wanders around, you wander around with it inside your head, and then people at the end of it, they say, oh, are you really pleased with it? And you're sort of thinking, well, I knew it was going to look like that, because it's in your head. Yeah. But of course, it's of no use to anybody. You can't actually climb inside my head, which is probably quite a good thing, because you help not to be there. But, you don't want to be, VR is a great way of it's that immersive experience, and it is I'm very tech savvy, and I'm also probably a bit cynical about some of this stuff. When you put the VR head goggles on and you kind of look around and you are transported back into that person's garden, it's quite fun. It is definitely quite fun. And then you'll see there's a bit in Thursday's episode where something happens, and actually when you're standing there on the VR and you can feel yourself reeling, like it's quite disorientating. When they do something to sort of change perspective, it physically affects you. Thoroughly recommend it if anybody gets the opportunity. Good fun.
So last thing on this then, and I know it's an issue that you're quite strong on in terms of the contractor. how were they selected? How were they chosen? What were they? You know, do we know who they are? Do they get the publicity side of it, or is it pretty much, you know, it's the design in the garden?
Well, it's a program on the BBC, and so there are really strict guidelines about what can be said, and publicity for things, because it's a BBC program, and if the BBC contravene any of those any of those issues, then they'll be hammered. So, you know, quite correctly, you know, they're very tight on all of those things. But contractors are essential on this scheme as they are on anything else. Otherwise, we've just got bits of paper and maybe a bit of VR. What happened in this, and this was not least due with the timescales, is that as each designer, we looked at the contractors in that area, and we selected, we created a short list of contractors in that area. We had conversations with the production team, with us, and with the clients, and then the contractors, and they went to sites, they met the clients, and then the clients selected who they wanted to work. We did the designs. The designs were all priced by the contractor. So the contractors were fantastic, really good actually. They priced 2 schemes. And then, so at the point at which we presented to the clients, the contractor was already appointed and the budgets were already known. And we had to do it that way, because otherwise you imagine you do a design and then you go to a contractor and they've got their waiting list, and, you know, 3 months later, the build starts, and then 2 months after that, the build is finished. That's just not practical, you know, with a timescale for television. The contractors that were selected on the project, so each of the designer does 3 episodes, so works with 3 different clients. So I sort of know, like, there's me and Tom, me and Manoj, me and Pip, and then obviously the other combinations of things. So, you know, the contractors that me and Manoj selected, they're fantastic. They're great contractors. They're for all of the schemes, certainly for 3 of the contractors in the shortlist, fantastic contractors. And we were really fortunate with the contractors that were appointed in each case. They're really good people, high quality contractors.
So there's 6 episodes, and are the gardens all varied, and they're all, is it UK wide, is it?
Yes, yeah. So there's, gosh, where are they all? Am I even allowed to say? I don't know. They are, yes, they're not all in London. They are in different parts of the country.
Yeah, and all different sizes and all different types of budgets.
They're all so they're all quite modest budgets. But then that, you know, that depends on what you mean by modest. You know, most schemes that I get involved in tend to be sort of 50,000 upwards. So for me, I'd say they were quite sort of modest budgets, but they're real. It's a lot, you know. People have saved up a lot of money. If you're saving up £20,000 and you want to spend it on a garden, that's an awful lot of money. Yeah.
Just thanks on that. But on that modest side of it, you know, you're kind enough to judge our small projects big impact awards, and I think your critique on them have been absolutely really helpful to the people in terms of doing it. But you talk a lot, you know, that 25, because it's under 25 grand, but in some people's minds that is a lot of money, and that's a lot of money to spend on garden. But there's a tendency for designers to over design when it's at that sort of level. I agree.
I do think, for me as a designer, and I think this all does come down, I guess, to sort of personal preference, and we all come from a slightly different place. But if I've got a client, if I see a scheme with £25,000, that's essentially going to buy you a small amount of construction. It is a lot of money, but it doesn't spread as far as you think it's going to. I personally, at the end of the day, if somebody's got a small garden, they've got 20 grand. I'm interested in seeing schemes and designing schemes where you create a lovely space for them to go and sit in that garden, and then it looks beautiful and you use nice materials. I think designs, are less successful if you, because quite often a client will say to you, I want, and there's this massive long list, but actually that cannot be bought for £25,000. In most cases, that list is longer than you can construct to any level of quality. And so I think our jobs as designers is to have that conversation with the clients and explore, you know, what do they actually want? You know, how do they want to use that garden? What's the point of the garden? And then make sure that we hit that. And often I find that when I speak to people, actually, when you bother to spend the time exploring that with them, 9 times out of 10 people will say, no, actually, I didn't really want that. You know, it was just a kind of maybe, I was just sort of on my wish list. And then when you explain to them that it means that they've got to put very poor quality materials, or you've got to really compromise in some other areas, or they've got to up their budget, people will often say, that's fine, I just want something to sit in my garden that's lovely. And so I think, you know, that whole process as a designer is really important. It's important at every budget level, but it's very, very important at that, at the £20,000-25,000. And as you say, if somebody saved up £20,000-25,000, for them, that is the equivalent of somebody who's more affluent of probably spending £500,000. You know, it's hard-earned money. And I like the scheme this year. Rachel Bailey did that beautiful scheme, just lovely. A really sensitive approach, a really, it was just a beautiful, beautiful, understated, beautiful response to that site. And then Fiona did that lovely wildlife garden. It was just a beautiful response. Neither of them were over-designed, very pared back, really good ideas, beautifully executed. Just lovely, lovely work. I think that they were really beautiful schemes. And perhaps some of the others had kind of said, oh no, actually, I'll put this in as well, I'll put this in, I'll put this in. And actually they'd have been better off with a big red pen.
Excellent. Right, we're 5 minutes away, and there's a couple of other topics that I'd like to get your views on a bit more. They've come up before in conversations that we've had, both in terms of one-to-one conversations and through some of these Zooms and Futurescape virtuals.
Yeah.
Females in the industry, the roles and the way that they're looked and perceived, I know that's a burning issue for you. And I guess linked to that slightly is how the industry is fascinated on, and hands up as well, we have one of these type of schemes, on looking at the young and how we promote and grow. Mm-hmm. And we miss a vast audience because of our fixation on that we need to get people out of college and into horticulture. What your views?
Yeah, so the kind of easy one for me is women in our industry. First of all, sometimes I think if you look at the show gardens, you might think that the only good designers in this country are men. You know, that tends to be quite male dominated, and you do see women, but not always, certainly not equally represented. If you look at this, something like the FSGD awards, you see the quality of the work that women are doing, and your own, award scheme. You know, like the work I've just mentioned of Rachel and Fiona. This is high quality work. Women are make very good designers, and they're out there running great businesses, doing great work. And yet, we talk about women at lunch, ladies at lunch. If you just stop and think about what that sentence, that is an outrageous sentence. Just women designers are routinely described as ladies at lunch. Their contribution, their work to the industry is so dismissive. And then people will say, oh no, but I don't mean you. It's like, what? Really? That is absolutely scandalous and outrageous. And we need to challenge that, because behind that such language lies fundamentally misogynistic attitudes. I do know what a straight line is. I can use a spirit level. Actually, I can build a brick wall. I can do all of those things. I can drive a digger. I've just bought a place online. I'm quite happy at the weekend to get a digger out and to do all sorts of digger work. And that's true for so many women. We're not ladies at lunch, and we need to absolutely just push back on that language. We need to change the language that we use when we are talking about designers. Women, fantastic designers. Men, fantastic designers. It's not a one or the other. Men and women both do a really good job. Stop pushing back or pushing down on women and dismissing their contribution because it's not acceptable. Grump over. It does make me really grumpy when I
just before we leave that, though, there is also the terminology garden designer could have done maybe 7 years as a landscape architect and do garden design, or it could be on a 4-week course or an online hour every so often course.
Yep.
Is that one of the issues as well, do you think? Not men and women can both do that, but do you think that's one of the issues in terms of what is a garden designer?
I think that we should be having conversations about designers in terms of their skill set and their capacity. And I have seen fantastic landscape architects, and I have seen fantastic garden designers, and I have seen poor landscape architects and poor garden designers. Garden design is a specialism within landscape architecture. And anybody that thinks that landscape architects are just there doing those long courses, or the garden designers who bother to do a degree are just there just for the fun of it, are delusional. The skill set that is required to be a landscape architect and the skill set that's required to be a good, competent garden designer is enormous. You've got to be able to do design, you've got to be able to present it well, you've got to be able to work with clients, you've got to be able to run budgets, you've got to know about construction, you've got to know about horticulture, you've got to know about gardening and aftercare. That's just the kind of like the headline issues. We do our industry a huge disservice when we say, oh, it's fine, just do a short course and you'll learn everything you need to know. You absolutely won't. I have employed so many people, and I regularly get people phoning up saying, I want to retrain as a garden designer. I'm going to do this course, would you employ me? And the answer to that is no, I absolutely wouldn't, because if you can't be bothered to take your training seriously, why should I train you? It makes me very cross, and it's so damaging for our industry. Landscape architects do that long course because they have a lot to learn, but when they come out of it, they are much better equipped to do the job that is needed. And the same for garden designers that do a garden design degree. It makes me very nervous when I hear people saying, and this again is just one of those stereotypes which are just often so unhelpful. Landscape architects will do all your construction detailing for you, but they know nothing about plants. Garden designers know everything about plants, but they know nothing about construction. That's nonsense too. I can give you so many years. I mean, landscape architects that don't know about plants. I think Nigel Dunnett would have something to say about that. Just clearly nonsense. Garden designers who can't do construction details. I suspect Andy Sturgeon would have a lot to say about that. It's just these views that just get so easily peddled need to be challenged. What we should as an industry be saying is, if you want to come and work in our industry, it's a fantastic industry. If you want to work as a designer, there is this huge range of skills that you need to learn. You need to learn them as part of reflective learning. And by that, I mean that you do something, you do a bit of work and then you have time to consider it and improve your skill set and do that again. And you're not doing that on somebody's garden, spending somebody's money. And I think that's really important. It is a difficult and challenging job. And I do not believe that you can learn the skills that you need in a year course. You're not even covering the subjects. What a lot of people do is they come out and they kind of can, maybe do a bit of design and maybe do some quite nice presentation, but then they absolutely have to rely on good quality contractors to bail them out. That's really not what we should be doing as an industry, because what happens if somebody takes your design and they get it built by a poor quality contractor? Then what happens?
Exactly. Yeah. You often hear landscapers talking about the difference in terms of working with designers with experience and knowledge than you do the fresh ones. But I guess somewhere along the way there needs to be. I always sort of reflected. So if you went and knocked on someone's door and explained the garden design, how would they know where a garden designer is qualified or how they would do it, and how would they suddenly get that trust and understanding and that, okay, I'm happy to give this person 50 grand to design my garden?
Well, I think it's difficult. I think the SGD has a really important role to play there, actually, and I think that the SGD should absolutely protect the standards, because they are the standard bearer of garden design. at the moment, because there are lots of different routes into that, and the SGD absolutely need to be very robust in their protection of the standards that need to be working at before they become an MSGD. Any erosion of that quality of that checking, I think, is hugely detrimental to the whole of the garden design industry, and leaves garden designers open to accusations of incompetence and being ladies at lunch, of course. I think we have to be careful. It is, I think we have to, our education system should recognise and reflect the complexity of the work that we do. It does worry me enormously if you look at the way the show system works, if you look at often the media and, you know, TV programmes and all sorts of other things. You know, if we just sort of say, oh yeah, look, you know, you've done one good garden, that makes you a fantastic garden designer, you know. And I think it's also very worrying. I'm really pro people that change, and I really champion, I did myself, you know, I changed careers, I retrained. And I think that's really important, because actually statistically about 50%, I think it's 40 something, 5% of people at some point in their careers will fundamentally retrain and do some, and do a wholly different job. And it is expected that in the future, as our working lives change and our society changes, that percentage of people that retrains, that figure will go up, not down. There is also a significant amount of evidence that while clearly you want great, fantastic people coming in when they're young, and young people are lovely and fantastic and they have ideas and all sorts of other lovely things, there is also a lot of evidence that people who choose a career when they are older, when they are more aware of who they are more aware of their interests and their skill sets, actually not only do they catch up on the skill levels from their peers who have been in the industry for a longer period of time, but actually often they overtake them, and they are often run very successful businesses in their sectors. And that's true not just in our industry, but across different sectors. So I think we should absolutely welcome and encourage good people into our industry. Those people should take their education seriously. And our industry should have a way of differentiating between somebody who's done a drawing course and somebody who's actually bothered to make sure that they can do everything at a professional level. You know, anybody can cook. Not everybody can be to run a professional kitchen. And I think that is really, that we should look at those sort of parallels. In terms of the ageism, that I'm always grumping at you, Jim, aren't I, about your 30 under 30, and I'm having grump at the RHS as well. Fundamentally, what we're talking about, what I think is important, is that we should create and support people and ensure that they have equal opportunity. This has been a bedrock of UK society for quite some time. It's been recognised for a long time that there should be equal opportunities across different sectors. And things like 30 under 30 and things like young designer do not give people equal opportunities. And I think that's a great shame. If there was a 30 under 30 and a 60 under 60, then I might be, you know, I would probably stop grumping about it. And if there was a young designer, a new designer, again, I'd stop grumping about it. But if you think of the nonsense of the young designers and the 30 under 30, what happens if you retrain when you're 31 and you are the best designer that the UK has had? You cannot use the RHS Young Design Scheme to help your career, to bring attention to you. But somebody who is under 30, who may not be anything like as talented, is able to do that. Is that what our industry needs? I don't think it is. I look forward to the 60 under 60, Jim.
I just about qualified for that. But there are other reasons we do that. We're getting to. So, yeah. Helen, couple of things then. One is, have you watched your programs, by the way?
I've seen episode 1.
Okay, and did you feel you come across all right? You enjoy watching it?
I watched it like that. I watched it with my family, and my children, who are both in their 20s, thought it was hilarious. My son was screeching like a banshee every time I opened my mouth. So, yeah, and at the end of it, my daughter said, oh, I thought you can be really embarrassing. Oh, actually, that's all right. So from a very low bar of being completely and utterly useless and embarrassing, apparently I was all right. But my son still thinks that I was very funny. So
we are running out of time, but I guess thank you very much. First of all, it's great, and I love the way that you come across and push it. And maybe you should have a bigger role in the industry as a whole, because I think you're exactly what's needed. And the second thing is, Lisa and I can't wait to get our high heels on and meet you up in London for a glass of wine.
Oh, absolutely! That's what we all want, isn't it? We all want. So I'm so shallow. I mean, I have absolutely no footballs whatsoever, but I absolutely cannot wait to have heels and a glass of champagne. How exciting will that be? If Congress has got it sorted by the FSGD Award, which I think is September, they're going to sell out in a microsecond, aren't they? We'll all be there. We'll be like, yeah.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Helen, and thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Again, hopefully we'll see you all next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Helen, brilliant. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Always lovely to talk to you. Thanks ever so much to everybody for listening.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Don't forget, 4th of February, everyone. BBC 2.
Bye.
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 Cheers. Bye.